Live.
And welcome to today's top story. I'm so happy to have some friends in the studio this morning for us. We're talking to Sara and Winona, and we're going to talk politics. And because, politics, of course, is always one of the top stories of the day. It never fails. There's always something political going on. We're going to focus in, though, a little specifically on provincial politics at this point. Sara is a freelance journalist and edited a piece in Sioux This Week, where you work pretty regularly, about, I was going to say Dr. Ford. No, Doug Ford. So tell us about what it was that you wanted to portray, what you wanted the people to hear you say about Doug Ford.
So really, the whole point of the piece was that I feel that all of the cuts and the changes being made by the current government are not in the best interest of the people of Ontario. So the whole point of the piece was that I wanted people to come forward and honestly explain to me, because I pride myself on being able to see both sides of most situations. But with some of these changes, I just can't. I can't understand the logic behind some of the changes being made and why people think it's better for Ontario. So I really wanted kind of people to come forward and explain to me, I genuinely want to understand how you can see this as in the best interest of Ontarians.
And Winona, you were very happy to step forward.
Absolutely. I think what's important, though, is to mention that Sara and I are actually friends.
Yes,
So,
which is awesome. That's why I think this is such a good opportunity
Right.
for our viewers to see that people can still get along and not agree on every single thing.
Yes.
Right.
So how did you handle it? What did you do in response to?
Well, I think, knowing what Sara was attempting to do with her piece and saying like she didn't agree with how this is the best interest for Ontarians, and I come from a different perspective. It's like, well, the reality is we can't. We're coming from a huge deficit, and unfortunately, we cannot always keep what we want because we're just going to keep going down the same road and increasing our deficit. So, yes, difficult decisions had to be made, and to respond so quickly to changes when someone's just come into power is a little premature. You know what I mean? We have to wait to see how things unfold.
But is it not premature that he's made those changes so quickly?
Yes and no.
Because that's what's scary to me.
Yes,
Right,
exactly.
Right. But the thing is what when we voted him in, it was to make those changes.
But to be fair, only 36% of voters actually voted him in.
Right. Regardless of that, it's just like the municipal election. Regardless of that, the vote's the vote.
True.
And we need to start working together towards it. So what people fail to do is they fail to see the positive side of it. The extra money that has come into our community, the extra money that's going to Ontarians, the increase in the mental health. Everyone was so quick to react that he made the cuts, but had we waited a couple of days, you would have seen he actually increased it. So it's that initial reaction I want people to stop doing, take a step back, breathe, the sober thought, you know what I mean? And then wait. Because what other people don't understand is when you have a bill, you roll so many things into that bill, and if you want to change one thing in that bill, you got to take it all out and then re-put it back in.
And go through all the stages of, and
exactly.
then it's like 14 teachers check your paper.
Right. I would argue that that's not necessarily a bad thing if we're, we need to do the proper research, the proper planning these are going to have long-term impacts, right?
Absolutely.
So, it's not like we can, I don't think we need to rush. Like, yes, that deficit is there and needs to be addressed, but it also, I think the lives of Ontarians and making sure that they are being impacted in a positive way is a more urgent matter that needs to be addressed more urgently.
But you're assuming that those decisions came without thought. Remember, they've been involved in that they've been in their seats. This has been an ongoing discussion, not just within when they came into power. These are discussions that happened beforehand as well.
Some of them,
yeah, because Doug Ford is the most recent leader and
Right.
came under some bad press at the time for the leader, and so was he at the table all that time?
The policies are actually, what people don't realize is that the Conservative government, the policies are actually put out to the membership, because I went to one of those conventions, right? So it's not like he was oblivious and just made a decision off the top of his head. These are decisions that come as a group of what we need to do, and not everyone is going to agree. Do you know what I mean? So they were elected to figure out a way to get us, one, out of this deficit, but still keep adequate services, because we still want to do that, obviously. And it's we couldn't go, we had to pull back the spending. No matter how you cut it, we're pulling back spending. So we just need to stop that reaction.
I think my thing, so for example, there has been one move I can think of off the top of my head that I do agree with cutting back the spending, and that's the clawbacks to OHIP Plus. I think that was a wise move. There's no, if somebody's already got the insurance coverage, there's no reason to be taking that out of the provincial pocket. I understand that one. So I think if they can find more things like that don't cost Ontarians money, don't impact quality of life, but so many of the decisions do directly impact quality of life. And so let's go with, for example, social, like welfare and everything, OW and all that.
Yep.
Those decisions were not made with the proper research, I feel. Because, let me... The pilot, that's what I'm trying to think of, the pilot program. He campaigned on not canceling that, and then he canceled it. And that has a very clear impact. Like, people were planning on having that money for the next 3 years, or 2 years, I guess, is what was left roughly. So people were planning their lives around that, and he promised he wasn't going to cut it, and then he did. So like, that one is not... I don't understand how we can look at that and say, yes, that is somewhere money should have come from to address this deficit. That's what I don't understand, is that the ones that directly impact people's lives, how can we say that, yes, the deficit is more important than the impact that change is going to have on those people's lives?
So then my question to you would be to pose that pilot program that you were talking about that he cut, the actual effectiveness of that was not what people thought it was.
But it was a 3-year pilot. We had 2 more years to see what the effectiveness was going to be.
But if it's already falling apart, why would you invest 3 more years
into
something that was falling apart?
Who says it was falling apart?
We elected people to decide that, and if you talk to the individuals that impacted, not everyone was seeing a benefit out of it.
Not everyone, but
so we got to stop
do you
looking
think-
individualistic.
So do you think decisions like that are, this is going to sound silly, but too political? Do you know what I mean? Like
100%.
If they're making decisions based on their own people, does it need to go wider?
Absolutely.
Do you need to ask your constituents maybe what their opinion is?
100%.
Yeah, maybe. Absolutely.
And I'm a strong advocate for town halls. I would love to see Ross Romano do a town hall, because it gives the opportunity for us to ask him questions, because I get it, he's busy. It's frustrating as a constituent to not be able to get an appointment with him, but I understand that he's busy. So, if we had a town hall, I was actually thinking about this yesterday, I would love it if it was mandated that every MPP and every MP has to hold at least one town hall a year. That is an excellent way to get in touch with your constituents. You might only have 12 people show up, but you know what? If that's 12 people that you can talk to in an hour, then that's excellent. If you have 1,000 people show up, then it's an hour of 1,000 people that you're interacting with.
And you always have to think too, if there's 12 people there, they're going to tell their friends and their friends. So it's like, now you're talking 100 people. So anything is effective, perhaps.
And I could agree with that. You know what? Because I think that would be an effective tool for anybody who's in government or a representative, including our municipal, to do things like that. But we also have to make sure that, and I would hope that the people who attend the town hall have open minds. And they're not there with their own agenda. And unfortunately, the way politics is right now, it's very...
Yes.
It's
very
left versus right.
Absolutely.
It's very, very divided. Do you guys think that there's any reflection coming from the United States in the division that we're feeling in Ontario?
I think
or
it's
is that
worldwide.
too easy?
I think it's worldwide.
Yeah.
There's definitely been a movement worldwide of right versus left. You see it in Europe that, you know, the right-wing populism is growing for sure, and in response to that, the left-wing side, I'm not going to say populism per se, but the left wing is definitely getting louder and more vocal about their response to it, and that divide is sharpening for sure.
Do you feel the divide?
I think what actually happens is we are reacting to our federal governments across the world, because, like it or not, the municipalities don't control. Canada's does. So our federal representative, our federal government right now, it probably hasn't acted in the best interest of Canada, and we are divided. We are. There's no doubt about it. We've never been more divided than we are now. And if our federal government cannot bring together a united Canada, then the rest of it's just not going to. The rest of it falls through.
Down.
Right. So I think across the whole plate, like Sarah was saying, across the world, the federal people, the ones that are currently in charge, are not making the best decisions for the people.
So they're fostering the division.
Right, exactly. So it seems like, to me, it may sound like far right, far left, but there's a far bigger majority that are sitting in the middle waiting to make that decision. Because you got 2% that are far right, 2% that are far left, and then you got that big chunk in the middle
I think
people don't know what to do.
Exactly. That's exactly it.
The
people in the far right and far left are the ones that are being really loud and vocal, and then the people in the middle are the ones who are sitting there going, what's going on? What do I do? How do I fix this?
I kind of agree with that, and I kind of agree with this, and I feel like if I'm not on one side or the other, I can't be in the middle.
Exactly.
And people feel lost.
And I think, too, people are being attacked as well. So if I do agree with something that's liberal-minded, because I am a very liberal-minded person.
Yes, you are.
They're like, hey,
wait a minute,
you can't do that. And then, but if I say, you know, something that's on a conservative value, because I do lean a little closer to that, it's like, hey, you can't talk both. Why can't I?
Why can't I?
Because it's through these conversations that Sarah and I have, you know what I mean, that we've become, actually, I have a bigger respect for Sarah. You know what I mean? And I assume she has the same thing for me, because she keeps talking, you know?
Never assume.
But she keeps talking to me anyway. But do you know what I mean? So we can see that middle ground, and that's what we really want people to start happening, because unfortunately Canada is the way it is right now, and we need to get that back. And if we have to pull people kicking and screaming to the middle, we will.
And I think it's important that you've both made the point several times during our discussion today about respect and honor. And you know what? Let's remember the basic manners that our parents taught us, like a simple please and thank you. It's not necessary to call somebody a name, because you're not creating a dialogue. Now it's a diatribe. Now you're just spewing and
echo chamber.
And what happens is the more you spew, the less people listen to you after a while. Right?
And I find it's similar to, and I wrote another op-ed about this one, that
haven't seen it yet.
It was last week. You don't read my stuff?
What kind of friend are you?
So people complain about politicians and how they're only in it for themselves, and they're these rotten people and such and such. Number one, that's not true.
No, it isn't.
And number two, if you don't want it to be true, stop saying it, because it discourages people from running who are not like that. You know, eventually we will end up with people who are only like that, who are only, you know, left or right or rotten people, because they don't mind being called a rotten person.
Or use your voice in a way to perhaps change the politician that you think is out for himself.
Proactive language. And I've said this before, the more differences you look for, the more you will see. So we need to stop that, and we can start with our community here. We start looking at how we're the same. Let's come together. Let's have those conversations and be respectful and mature. And if you can't, then please don't attend. We're okay with that. You know what I mean? And
stay home.
We're not going to force anybody. But at the same time, we need to then take that conversation provincially and take it federally. And this is a very important year. So we have some work to do.
We all
go fast.
And I think that that's an important point to make, because we all have to do the work. Right? You can't sit back and criticize and be nasty and then not vote. That's a huge issue for me.
Exactly.
Yes.
And as much as we don't like it, we can't say the results are based on that. Well, yeah, they are, but unfortunately it's the reality of it. So let's work together and get things done. I'm not going to agree with everything my government does, but at the same time, I'm certainly not going to attack them either and say, hey, what about me? Well, guess what? It's not just about me. It's about
a
far
province. Yes.
bigger area that we are very unique. Our city's very unique. We're very wonderful. I do love Sault Ste.
I do
Marie,
too.
100%.
Yeah, I do too.
But unfortunately, it's not the reality of the rest of the province. So
Right.
they're going to make decisions that not necessarily we won't like, but it may be to the benefit of other people. And
Right.
it's part of that talking, and until we talk and have those conversations, we're not going to know that because we're on our own little echo chambers.
Right. and you know what? Not everyone who's watching has an opportunity to do these awesome op-eds or
Yes.
to do something like this every day. So how do you think we can go about as a voter in voicing our opinion? What's the best, most effective way you think?
Well, voting.
Voting is
But
yes.
barring that, I think getting in touch with your representatives. I mean, whether you agree or disagree with them, I think it's important that they hear from their constituents. So, I mean, I don't always agree with Ross Romano, so I've let him know that in my own ways.
Loudly.
Absolutely.
But I mean, I'm sure Winona does agree with some of his stuff, so
absolutely.
she should let him know that. And, you know, whether that's just stopping into the office and saying, hey, I just wanted to let you know, I think Ross is doing a great job. Sending a quick letter and saying, yes, thank you for doing this.
Yeah.
I think that making your voice heard with your representatives.
Do you feel like
I
your
would go one step
suggestions would
further
be
that
heard?
to that, though.
What's that?
Because I think as individuals, we have a responsibility to educate ourselves.
Yes.
And unfortunately, because Canada is so divided, you could have people on the left only listening to left-sided media. You have people on the right only listening to right-sided
Exactly.
media. And that's only because it attracts our personal belief system, so we tend to just lean for that.
Yeah.
I actually read a variety of information across Europe, across Canada, so I read both left and right, and that allows me to have that unique perspective that I have, that I'll sit. I have that liberal-minded, but I have the conservative values as well.
And it's interesting because it's an education.
Absolutely.
And an informed decision.
And we have a responsibility.
And you know what? It's a privilege. And I don't think that enough
Absolutely.
people realize that.
Yes,
It's a privilege, and those people that we call the politicians who, you know, are out for themselves, and whether you agree with or disagree with any of the policies, there is a moment and a time where you need to realize these people are there for you. They are working for you because we put them in there.
Absolutely.
So you know what? If you're doing something and the boss doesn't like it, guess who's getting called up on the rug?
Exactly.
Right?
It's called
Not that that's ever
accountability.
happened to me, but
Me neither.
no. And you know what? I think today is a perfect example of people who are informed and educated, people who can be respectful with each other and still talk about politics. And yes, 3 grown-up women can actually get along. Imagine that. So good to see you too. Thanks so
thank you
much.
very much.
Appreciate your time. Come back and do this again with me.
Anytime.
Sounds good. We'll be back right after this.